This is the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. Confident Live Marketing Podcast with Ian Anderson Gray, helping entrepreneurs level up their impact, authority and profits through the power of live video. Gain confidence in front of the camera, confidence with technology, and confidence with the content and marketing.
Together, we can go live!
Hello, welcome to episode 95 of the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. My name's Ian Anderson Gray, and in this show, we're going to be talking about how to produce a virtual live event with success. The show notes for this episode will be found at iag.me/95. Now, like many event organisers this year, Janet Murray had to make a decision. Would she cancel or postpone her 2021 Sorted event, since it could no longer be an in-person event? Well, she did neither of those things. She actually went all out to create what I would say is the best ever live virtual event. And she hired me as the event producer, and we planned out the 2-day event with multiple keynote speakers, interactive slides, videos, and more. Now, I had one part of that. Obviously, Janet did a huge amount of work. She had a team around her. And I'm going to be talking to Janet today about how she put it on, but also how you can do it and put it all together, and how you could say no to death by Zoom. We definitely don't want any death by Zoom, and put on an awesome virtual event. As I said before I started, just to say, if you want to get involved with this live show, if you don't want to miss next time, then just go to confident.live/subscribe. That's confident.live/subscribe. Well, it's time to bring in my first sponsor of today. And that is the wonderful people at Restream. Restream is the tool that I use for all my live shows. It is the complete multi-streaming suite for entrepreneurs. With Restream, you can stream to multiple platforms all at the same time. In fact, they have a plethora. I do love that word. I'm going to have to think of a new one. But anyway, they have a plethora of destinations, including, what do they have? It's not listed here on the screen, but Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitch, Periscope, Mixcloud. There are over 30 different destinations that you can stream to. And so you could use a tool like OBS Studio or Ecamm Live to stream to Restream, and then that will take care of all your multi-streaming for you really easily. Or if you want to make things a lot easier, you can use Restream Studio. So this works directly in your browser. So you can have up to 9 guests onto your show. You can broadcast to all these different destinations, and you can see all the comments from all those different platforms, which is amazing. And you can highlight those on the screen. So as well as the chat facility, you've also got analytics as well, and a scheduler as well. So this allows you to basically stream your pre-recorded video live. And don't forget the analytics section. So this basically shows you, allows you to look at the success of your live stream, so you can see which were the most watched parts of your video and get some insights onto your live stream. So I'm a massive fan of Restream. It's an awesome service. If you want to find out more, all you need to do is go to iag.me/Restream, and they've got a free plan and some paid plans. It's really awesome. Okay, fabulous. Let's talk about Janet. So Janet this is actually, I believe, the 3rd time she's been on the show. It's at least 3 times anyway. So Janet is awesome, and she's the brains behind 2021 Sorted. And she helps entrepreneurs, coaches, and creatives build and monetize their online presence. She is a podcaster, author, and speaker who has spoken all over the world about content strategy, marketing, and building online audiences. And she's also the creator of the Media Diary, a content planning tool for coaches, consultants, experts, and entrepreneurs. Janet, welcome to the show! There we go. Yes, I know the crowd gets very excited, But anyway, it's great to have you on the show.
It's good for the ego, all of that recorded clapping.
I know. What are you saying? They're real. I've fit them. Well, okay, maybe not. We've just moved into tier 3 in the UK. So the lockdown is, well, actually we're still in the lockdown, but tier 3, and I think you're joining us. So Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been in tier 3 for quite some time, haven't you? Whereas
Yeah.
we've had it fairly easy. I'm in Kent,
Yeah.
just outside London, and yeah, we've just gone into tier 3. So yeah, my daughter just said to me, will we be able to go to Blue Water, our local shopping centre, at Christmas? And I said, no, I think we'll be shopping online this year. So yeah, it's probably the least of our problems, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. Let's just say Melissa's saying, looking forward to a virtual planning event from next week. Awesome. Well, let us know, Melissa, if you've got any questions and what your thoughts are really on all of this. So tell everyone who hasn't heard of your 2021 sorted event, how does it normally go about? I mean, and it's not the only event that you do, but this is one of your big events that you do every year. It's in person. What was it going to be like if 2020 hadn't been what it has been?
Okay, so it's an annual content planning event. I've been running it in sort of different formats. It's evolved a bit, but I've been running it for 5 years. So it was due to happen in person. So last year's event, it was going to be along the same line. So last year's event was, we had 150, but we were planning to go up to, we had the capacity to go up to about 400 this year. And it was looking like that was doable. And so basically everybody comes together at this content planning event to plan their content for the next year, which is kind of like the clues in the phrase. It was going to be an in-person event, so I booked keynote speakers. People were going to be traveling. So this year it was in Northampton. Last year, this year it was going to be in Newcastle. We booked big event space in the Hilton Hotel, and people were starting to book their hotels and get excited for their travel and have a few days away, plan for the next year. And then obviously COVID happened, and it became quite apparent that we weren't going to be able to. I mean, I think I realised over the summer, it was due to happen November the 3rd and 4th. Realised that it wasn't going to be able to happen, in the way that it was. So it left us with a big decision. Do we just scrap the whole thing? And actually, to be quite frank, from a sort of financial point of view, it might have been better, because to move a whole event online is huge. I've run live events, like loads and loads of live events. We're quite a well-oiled machine. But to take an event that you normally deliver in person and to bring it online, and also to create a high quality event, because I was picking up very much that people were like, oh, I'm fed up of Zoom calls, I'm fed up of being online. And I knew if we were going to do it, it had to be really good. It had to be really high quality. So, but we decided to go for it. But it was and the event actually ended up being bigger than we'd anticipated. I think actually better, but that's probably another part of the conversation. But yeah, big event. At least we had the capacity to go up to 400. We ended up having 10 keynote speakers. I'd already booked some of the speakers. It was going to be great, and we were going to have socials and all sorts, and so it was a big shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when do you normally, going back in time, when do you start planning for an event? So the event was going to be in November 2020. It was going to be in Newcastle. When do you start to put everything in place? For example, booking the venue, booking the speakers. What time of year did you do that?
Well, we'd actually sold 150 tickets already, because the best time to put your tickets on sale for an event, if you ever sold an event, is when people are there with you at your event. So put them on to the next one. So we'd sold over, I think it was 150 tickets. I'd booked some of the speakers, not all of them, but I'd booked quite a few of them. And so generally, we get the venue booked the year before. We sell the first batch of tickets, and then we usually start. I sell a diary and planner, a content planner, and so we usually pick up the event again in the summer, and start selling it. When we start talking about the diary, because it's a content planning event, and the event comes with the diary. So yeah, we usually would sort of spend a good 3 or 4 months in the run up to it. Obviously, it's planned at least a year in advance, but the actual kind of donkey work in the nicest possible way of putting it together normally happens from about the summertime, sort of July, August time. We'd sort of start to get stuck in and start to really get selling the tickets again.
That makes sense. So you sold the tickets in November 2019. You started booking the speakers and the venue. But and so there was some initial work, but it was really the summer, so it was about at least 3 months, possibly 4 months before the actual event that you start to do the real, as you say, the donkey work.
Yeah. The donkey work. That's when that happens. Yeah.
The donkey work. Yeah, because obviously, like putting on an event is like a bed of roses. It's so easy, isn't it? Not. So
yeah, I mean it's hard, you know, and especially once you get into the hundreds. You know, I think people sometimes don't appreciate how challenging it is to fill a room of people, or to fill, you know, selling tickets to events is one of the hardest things going, I think.
So you've already said that you felt it went better than the actual physical event. There's a lot of things about it that were really positive. I mean, looking back on it now, how do you feel it went?
I just thought it was amazing, and I thought, as you know, Ian, I am quite self-critical. I'm not somebody who who finishes an event and goes, "Oh, that was amazing." Like you know, we did an event this afternoon, didn't we? And the first thing I said to you was like, "Oh, I should have done this differently, or I should have done that." But I felt it was amazing, and I felt like the overall experience and the learning that went on was actually probably better than you would get at a live event, because people really did, like, I mean, this was part of the way that we marketed it, but people really put aside the time. Some people who were able to book into hotels actually went off and booked in a hotel on their own to do the event so that they could really focus on it. But the first thing I did actually was to book more speakers. I realized that a 2-day event to hold, you know, if you've got 8-10 keynote speakers to hold people's attention, it's, you know, that's quite challenging. And I also realized that the bit that people were really going to miss was the socialization bit. So I immediately booked about 35 more speakers, which made live, the more speakers you have, the harder it is, because you've got to keep them all in tow and, you know, make sure you've got all the information from them and they're in the right place at the right time. And what we decided to do is to introduce these level up sessions. So these were actually on Zoom, although the main event was live streamed into a Facebook group, professionally live streamed by you, really high quality. And I created these level up sessions because I thought, well, the bit that people are really going to miss is the chance to chat to each other, you know, that kind of coffee queue, like, you know, when you just get chatting to somebody. So we created these level up sessions, and I booked a panel of speakers for each session and a host. And we picked topics that are the kind of topics that you would end up talking, you know, like you might go to like social media marketing world, and you might go for the Pinterest session, and you might go for the Instagram session or whatever. But there probably wouldn't be a session on the things that I'm going to share with you now. So we had a session on dealing with copycats and trolls. We had one on dealing with your mental health as an entrepreneur. We had one about putting boundaries in place, you know, making sure you get paid on time. And they're the kind of conversations that tend to happen, like when you're in the coffee queue or in the restaurant or over a drink, when you really talk about what it's really like to be an entrepreneur and some of the challenges that you're having. So we tried to replicate that. So we had this panel of 4 speakers, and then we split people up, and we used Zoom rooms to get people chatting in the rooms, so that they would get to meet each other in an online environment, but they would, you know, it wouldn't be awkward. They'd have something to talk about because they'd just listened to something interesting. We gave them questions. So we really thought about everything, I think. And so we had like 3 tracks at the end. So we had track 1, which was the keynotes that were being streamed into the Facebook group. We had this second track with the level up sessions. We also had a third track. So we had some like I have in my Build Your Online Audience membership. We have this these Get It Done sessions, these co-working sessions. So we had some of those as well. So we had a third track. And we really worked really hard just to kind of keep the buzz up. We had like competitions and prizes, and we had a messenger bot, which was, you know, keeping people up to date with what was going on and asking questions. And so it was a lot of work to keep it really buzzy. But I felt like at the end of the 2 days that actually people being in their offices, excuse me, or in the hotel or wherever they were, actually the learning that took place was, I felt like the learning was better because people were much more focused than they would be. I think it can be a bit distracting sometimes at an in-person event. But there was a lot of effort that went in, you know, that some of the things that we did with the keynote sessions in the main room, like we had like questions, didn't we? Like it was like a proper TV show, but we had when people were gathering, waiting for the sessions to start, we had lots of interactive questions. We thought a lot about how to get people to interact. Oh, and we had entertainment as well. So we had on the first night we had a Zoom party, and which sounds all four were Zoom parties, but it wasn't at all. They had a magician, I mean to say, who came in and did. He did 3 shows every evening. It was actually my cousin, and everybody loved it. And they brought their kids, and then we had a karaoke room, and it was just great. Like, and it's hard to explain really how that could be better. But I mean, I've really felt like, and I was less exhausted as an event organizer as well, although I wasn't completely exhausted at the end of it. There was something really nice about running it from my own. I was able to do it from my own home, and yeah, it was just, I don't know about you, Ian, but I just thought it was great. And I just thought the quality of learning was just so good.
Well, it's interesting because so obviously I love live video. I'm a big advocate of live video. I mean, that's what this show is partly about. But to be honest, virtual events do not fill me with joy, or they didn't fill me with joy, because I've been to so many, and so many of us this year in 2020, we are experiencing death by Zoom. And I don't know what it is, but there's just something about it that drains me. I feel drained after a Zoom session. Whereas if I'm sitting around a table at a conference with 2 or 3 people having a deep conversation, it's probably because I'm an introvert and I like those kind of conversations. So I've been to quite a few virtual events, and they never filled me with joy. And so I totally saw kind of your vision of making this event not death by Zoom and actually going all out and trying to make it completely different. I saw that as really, really important, because I knew that I was not the only one, that a lot of people out there would be struggling with the same. And so I'm interested in terms of your marketing. There was obviously going to be a lot of people out there that when they heard the news that you were going to make this into a virtual event, that they were going to probably either want a refund or just not get excited by it. So what did you do in order to kind of convert people's thinking to actually this is different?
Well, I'm a big believer in putting the elephant in the room. So I knew what people would be thinking and saying. Some people, most people really understood. So as soon as we decided to take it online, and we didn't wait around, like we announced it in August, and I thought about all the objections people would have, because to be honest, it would have been easier. I would have lost a bit of money, but I probably could have made up that income more easily by not having the event. So just to put that out there. But I just felt it was so important that people had this, because I had, like you say, I had this vision, and I felt I could really make it work and have a really great event. But I knew there would be some people that didn't share my vision, and they couldn't almost see what I could see. So I knew I was going to have to sell it hard. As I say, the easy thing would be for me just to give everybody their money back. I've still got a deposit sitting in the Hilton in Newcastle. I don't know if I'll ever get that back. But to be honest, I could have done a launch. I could have generated the income some other way, probably a lot more easily. It was about, I just felt like people needed this. So I thought about all the objections that people would have. So the very first thing I did, Ian, pretty much was talk to you and talk to you about booking you to do a professionally live streamed event, because, and poor old Ian, I put you on the sales page, didn't I? And it said, like, picture of Ian that says, "This is not a succession of dreary Zoom calls." And that phrase, I just kept repeating it, like, because I didn't want people to think, although we did use Zoom, although, like I've already described, we used Zoom in quite a creative way. And it was those people who took part in those sessions, I think they were really impressed by how we did it. But it was on the sales page, it was everywhere. This is not a succession of dreary Zoom calls. If you're zoomed out, I can promise you. And I kept saying it's professionally live streamed. It's going to be more like a TV show quality. And we had that, didn't we? We had countdowns and, ads and, like it was like a TV show. But I knew I needed to say that. The other thing as well, I think I had to say is like, oh, God, well, let's face it. What else are we going to do? Like, are we just going to sit at home on our own? Because we can't get out and have, for me, that's a really negative way to look at it. And I'm quite a positive person. I'm very kind of like cup half full. So for me to say, well, we can't have an in-person event, so let's not bother, that to me just seems like a really negative way to look at it. So I just addressed it and was just like, I wrote emails and marketing copy, which was basically saying that, you might be looking at this and thinking this is rubbish, but like, what else are we going to do? Are we all going to sit at home on our own, or are we actually going to get together and try and create a really great event? And I think that message did resonate with people. And because I've built an audience, you know, I've had a podcast for 5 years, and I've had a membership for years, and I've got, you know, a bit of a following online. And people, that's the whole thing about having an audience and authority and trust. And, you know, people trust you. So I think people, thankfully, trusted me, that I had that vision and I was going to see it through because I've done it before. And so it was about just reminding people that it was going to be quality, telling people that I'd invested in you, and talking about, I created a podcast episode about what, you know, should you come to 2021 sorted, and quite a few people listened to that. And it was quite a long episode, about an hour long. But people listened to it and said, yep, I listened to that, and that really reassured me, really focusing on the learning. For those people that came along and said, well, it's an online event, can I have a refund? There weren't many, actually, because most people, I think, really understood that, you know, what are we going to do instead? The outcome's the same. Like the event is all about getting your content plan created for 2021. We delivered that, and I think we delivered so much more than that. But it was about, I think, just putting the elephant in the room and just saying, like, what was on people's mind, and just addressing it and tackling each objection really as it came through. So I created a lot of content around that. But I think people were really happy that they invested.
Well, I think you putting the elephant in the room was such a smart tactic, because I kind of see some event organizers out there that aren't really acknowledging the fact that, you know, in 2020 basically most events have had to be cancelled. And of course, if you're listening to this or watching this in the future, you know, hopefully the world is back to normal and events can happen. But you can still learn from this experience, because actually there's a lot of power in doing virtual events or even a hybrid events. And that might be something that we can talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, yeah, I'd have to say though, Janet, you did not ask my permission to put my image on that page, but it's absolutely fine. It's just so funny. I got a bit of a shock when I went to it. I thought, oh my goodness, like big image of me on there. But yeah, you wanted to obviously talk about the fact that, okay, this is unfortunate in one sense, we're having to move on to virtual, but these are all the reasons why this is actually going to be an amazing event. But of course, in your head, what was going on? Because, you know, this was quite a big thing to undertake. You know, were you quite nervous about this, putting it mildly?
I was nervous, and on the day, I think the first thing I said was, I'm really nervous. And I actually wrote to all of my clients. I always say that to my clients, actually, if they're nervous about anything like live video, speaking, I was like, tell people that you're nervous. It's like the biggest icebreaker in the world. But I was really nervous, particularly about putting the tech side off, because although obviously I had you, like, you know, you had my back, and we had so many contingency plans, didn't we? Like, you know, we had backups of backups of backups, and we'd had rehearsals, and I did a whole podcast episode, which maybe you can link to, people might find it interesting, about the planning that went into it, and some of I shared on Instagram stories the like minute by minute plan that we had of what was happening in each track. But I don't know, like once I put my mind to something, I'm just like full steam ahead, and I just couldn't. I knew that we were doing all the right things. The thing I was nervous about the most was about a tech issue, like all the tech going down. And I took insurance out. I probably could have got away with it, because got away with it. But and when I was talking to the insurance company, they were saying to me, well, you know, you don't really have to do this, because everything was going to be recorded, and people. I haven't mentioned the other thing, actually. As soon as I realized that we were going online, I also gave people a load of free content. So normally we would sell the recordings of the event separately, and normally people would have to pay separately. I have a content planning club, if you like, that goes along with the diary. So I gave people all of that for free. So normally they'd get their event ticket, and then if they wanted to buy the recordings, that would be separate. And if they wanted to upgrade to the content planning club for the year, that would be separate. But I basically just gave everybody access to everything. So even if the event hadn't gone ahead, they still would have got all of the recordings. The 2021 Sorted Club comes with quarterly coaching calls across the year. We just had a masterclass earlier today that's free as part of it. So even if like the tech had all completely failed, people still would have as long as we produce that content. And we also got all of the speakers to send backup videos as well, didn't we? Oh, so we did have, didn't we? We had Steve Dotto. It was the only challenging thing. Steve Dotto came in from Canada, and for whatever reason, his connection wasn't great. We switched to his video, and I think everybody was more impressed that we just switched straight to the video, didn't we? And that was like fine. And then he came back for questions. But because I think we'd thought of everything, that was my biggest fear, is that like something, the internet would go down. But it was more about, because we thought of everything, I thought, well, it was more about my personal pride, really. It was more about, just wanting it to all go right. And I was having to, from a live video point of view, actually, I really had to up my game, didn't I? I had to, and I'm quite happy at live. I'm quite happy with live video. I'm quite happy with like the tech and stuff. But I had to it's a lot to think about, isn't it? If you're using new tools, which luckily you were coaching me through what I needed and coaching, but I bought new kit, didn't I? So I'm using it now, new camera and some new kit. So I had to get used to all of that, and there were just so many things going on as well as the event. So when you're running an event, you're usually stressed anyway. But then if you're using this new tech, and I do a lot of this event, I do a lot of the presenting, a lot of the teaching as well, because I do the content planning bit. So yeah, I mean, it was really, really scary, but I just couldn't, I don't know, I just had this vision that it would work, and it had to work. So it was going to work, and that was that. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier, with the objections actually, was I had quite a lot of fun with it, because I don't know if you remember the video I made for Facebook ads, where I had a video, but basically I was like on my settee in my pajamas, saying like, hey, a lot of people say that virtual events are rubbish, but here I am, and I had like a big tub of like Celebrations chocolate, and then I had KFC, and I was basically saying, sit at home on your sofa, eating your favorite chocolates, you can get takeaway delivered. And then my daughter handed me a KFC, and my cats were in it and stuff. And I just had a lot of fun with the marketing, but I think I just knew it could work. So I don't know, I just stuck with it. And I think, hiring somebody like you to make sure it was professional and slick, investing in insurance, upgrading my kit, ultimately you get what you pay for. And I sometimes think that when people try to put on live events or virtual events, and you try and skimp, or you try not to invest, I hope it was really evident to those people who had invested that I'd invested financially as well as my time to make sure that it was top notch.
Well, I think a lot of people think when you put on a virtual event, well, you don't have to pay for the event, the actual venue, so you save a load of money, and but that just shows that you're skimping on the event, and it becomes very evident that it's going to be a very boring, dull event. And yeah, that's obviously something that you didn't want to do. So I'd like to go more into the process, and we also look at maybe at we've talked a little bit about the contingency and backup plans and all that kind of stuff. But before we do that, I just want to bring in my next sponsor, who is Content 10x. And Content 10x, if the button's going to work, it is working. Content 10x are fabulous. They are all about content repurposing, and they will take your one piece of content, whether it's a live video or another type of video or podcast, and they will turn it into, I'm going to say plethora again, aren't I? A plethora of different platform-specific on-brand content. So this is one of the reasons why I'm such a believer in live video, because it's a great way to create content quickly and easily, and then you can turn it into all these other pieces of content. I mean, this is what I do on this show. This becomes a podcast, it becomes a blog post, it becomes social media images. And for someone, if I go back 2 or 3 years ago, it would take me weeks and weeks and weeks to produce content, whether it's a blog post. I wasn't consistent. But now with this live show and all the other stuff that I'm doing, I've effectively got 2 live shows per week. I've got a podcast every week, a blog post every week, and social media images and posts. So this is what Content 10x can help you with. They can create all that content from you. And if they don't do it for you, they can teach you how to do it yourself using just listening to their podcast, reading their blog or their book or their toolkit. They're really smart, responsive, creative, and effective. And if you want to take out the stress of content marketing, Content 10x are the people you want to go to. And just a quick shout out to their new service called LinkedIn 10x, which is all about focusing on LinkedIn, getting your raising your game really on LinkedIn. So by producing that one piece of video content, whether it's live video, if the LinkedIn gods have given you access to it yet, or just regular video, they can take all the stress out of content marketing for you. So to find out more, just go to content10x.com, and I thank Amy and the team for sponsoring the show. Awesome. Great. So let's talk through the process. You mentioned quite a few things, actually. You talked about the fact that there were going to be 3 strands, or what's the word? There is another word for that. Streams?
Streams?
Something like tracks. That's the one.
Yeah.
3 tracks. So there was going to be the mainstream, or well, maybe not the main, but this is for the keynote speakers. And the decision was that we were going to broadcast into a Facebook group for that. And we did it over 2 days. There were some workshops that you did as well. And then track 2 was actually on Zoom. So it's a different technology, really. And that was maybe more interactive. And what was the name of that one?
Well, it's track 2, but it was level up sessions.
Level up sessions. That's
yeah.
And then level 3 was all about getting things done, actually implementation side of things. So when did you start thinking about that? And I mean, how did we get into the thinking of doing it on different platforms?
So normally all the learning takes place at my events. Everybody's in the room together. We usually have some breakfast sessions, and some extra little sessions and lunchtime things, but it's normally in one room. But I think it was about thinking about people's concentration, because I don't know about you, but 2 days, first of all, if you've got responsibilities and family or whatever, 2 days completely out. But also just for your concentration, I think sometimes it's harder to stay focused online. So the way I restructured really the way that we do it. So on day 1, I sort of said to people, look, if you want to come to everything on day 1 and day 2, that's brilliant. But I almost made day 1 more of a fringe day. So I had these, I picked speakers who would be able to help with a very specific content goal, because typically my clients, they either want to launch an online course, they want to launch a membership, they want to have a book, they want to have a podcast, a YouTube channel. So I thought, if I have these more in-depth workshops, people are likely on the first day, alongside these level up sessions in the Zoom rooms, people will probably look at that and say, well, there's a few of those that I'd like to go to, and in a few of these discussion sessions I get to meet a few people, but I won't go all in on the first day, because I wanted people to kind of keep their energy, because the second day is the day when we do the content plan, and that's when it's kind of really full on. So that was really the thinking. And I actually said to people quite actively, don't come to everything on the first day, save your energy, pick a few things that you really want to do. Everything's available on catch up. You'll be able to get all of the recordings. So keep your energy, pick out a few things that you want to do, come to a few of the more interactive sessions so you can get to meet people. And one of the nicest comments we had, actually, Vicky Jakes, one of my clients, said, I've met so many people and I haven't even left my house, which I thought was a great testimony to that part of it. I've met so many new people, I didn't even leave my house. And so that was really, I just recognized, I think, that 2 days was full on was too much. And I kind of, again, was very in the messaging. I just kept saying to people, don't feel like you have to come to everything on day 1, save your energy, just do a bit. And then day 2, it was much more focused on building that content plan. So we had a few more keynote speakers, but it was mainly me teaching people how to create their content plan, and then doing it with me live in the class. And that's one of the things that I think really appeals to people about the event generally, is that they're creating their content plan with me, and it gives them accountability to get it done. Obviously, normally we do that in person, but I think some people said they were really pleased, because it meant they didn't have to worry about hotels or travel or too much childcare. I mean, I did say to people, make sure that you do get the childcare so you can concentrate on it. But a lot of people were quite pleased, because it made it much easier for them to get involved. And also, we were able to have a lot more people from overseas, which was lovely, because obviously ordinarily it's it's a big expense and big time out to come from the US or whatever. So that was really nice as well. So that was the idea. It was just about to kind of just acknowledging really that 2 days is quite intense online, and a lot of events try and pack too much in, don't they, I think, and you end up feeling exhausted. So we also talked, remember, about, we had a really decent long lunch break on the first day, had half an hour breaks, so we tried to make it as easy as possible for people. I never run events later than 4 o'clock anyway, because I only ever run 10 till 4 anyway, because I think people just get tired and bored. And I've sat at events that have gone on from 9 till 5 and just been dying by the end of it. So I tend to keep mine quite short anyway. And I always have, as you'll know, Ian, like my keynotes are normally quite 20, 25 minutes or something like that. I think it's totally possible to deliver value in 20 minutes. So yeah, it was just really, that was the structure. It also means there's a lot of recordings for people to catch up and a lot of content for people who do want to catch up in their own time. They've got that. And one of the things actually we've been able to do is sort of private podcast stream as well, because some people, I don't know about you, but when I buy recordings of events, sometimes I don't ever end up watching them, but I would listen to them if I was out running or walking. So that's all great. Yeah. But yeah, is that kind of what you were asking? I feel like I've gone off a bit, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's really helpful. And then so I suppose the question that I know my listeners are going to be asking is, well, what do you actually need to put all of this together? Because so we had the tech, and you know, I've talked about the tech quite a bit on the show. So from a live streaming point of view, we used Ecamm Live with Restream, and I will say with the ability that Restream gave to this is that we were streaming to Janet's 2021 sorted Facebook group. That was the main place. But this is probably the time where we need to talk about the contingency plans, because if Facebook went down, which thankfully it didn't, but then we were also streaming to backup channels. We were streaming to a YouTube channel. They were all unlisted videos, and there were some emails ready to go out. Well, hopefully they were never going to be used, and they were never used. But in case Facebook went down, and we would have to move people over to the backup stream. So we did. There was a lot of that, and obviously you asked all the speakers to provide pre-recorded videos that we could then switch to, which we only needed to do once, thankfully. And we had the slides as well, so we had all the slides from all the speakers. So if they had problems showing their screen, I could put it all up. So we had a lot of those backup plans. But then there was the whole. The schedule, really, wasn't there? So we had Google Sheets with minute by minute instructions. I mean, how important was that, do you think, to the event?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just crucial, wasn't it? Because I have to say, Ian was like bullying me right from the outset, saying like, "Oh, we can't start our streams late," and and like this can't start late, and so that was really good. But having run loads of live events in the past, but I'm always really strict about that, because I've had that awful experience in the past where people have speakers have overrun and you've practically had to drag them off stage, and that's never a nice place to be. And obviously online it's a bit harder. So actually obviously we genuinely want a backup video, but also one of the advantages of getting the speakers to record a backup video was that then they knew how long it took them. So if a couple of them, their video was too long, wasn't it? But we could say to them, look, this is too long, you need to cut some of it out, because you really cannot go over. But we did schedule it, didn't we? So that if somebody did go over, like we scheduled quite generously, didn't we? So there was time in the schedule. So that was so important. In the Zoom rooms, oh my God, that was like, so we had Ant McGinley, who was like, that, I mean, that was an important thing as well. I do think you need somebody to host. So I found that quite difficult, sort of from a kind of like I wanted to be in the Zoom room as well, but I couldn't because I was in the main room. But I hired Ant McGinley, who's a podcaster. I don't know if you've ever had him on the show, Ian, but he's got a background in radio, so he's really used to being really spontaneous and just kind of like, you know, things going wrong and just kind of moving on. But anyway, we had a minute by minute schedule, just like what they use in radio, which was literally like, you know, open the Zoom room, do test, bring speakers in, and it was literally minute by minute, even to, you know, where we were splitting people up into the groups, like exactly what time they had to come back in, exactly how long Ant had to do the link to the next bit. So that meant that none of them ran over whatsoever. Because that would have caused a problem in the main room. So if any of those level up sessions in those Zoom rooms had gone over, that would have meant that people wouldn't have been over in time to start the stream. And so that it was so meticulously planned. But the team that I had in there, they were just so glad of it, because they did a really good job, because they literally were told what to do every minute, so they made them more confident.
Absolutely, and the thing is, there are two reasons why I think keeping to the time is so important. The most important one is, as you say, it's more professional. People get frustrated when you don't stick to the time, and but it also can cause ramifications as well to other things. But one of the things, if you're broadcasting to Facebook Live, that you need to remember is if you schedule in advance, which is obviously what we wanted to do. We wanted to schedule all the streams because that meant we could use the Facebook Messenger bot, we could send out emails and let people know exactly where they were supposed to be, because people get confused easily, don't they? But the thing is, with the Facebook Live, if you don't stream, if you start streaming 10 minutes late, you lose the stream. So you've only got 10 minutes to do it. So you've got to be, bang on time. And we always started 5 minutes early anyway, or 10 minutes early, because we wanted to build up the engagement. And so we had some questions and things like that on the screen. So you mentioned, just before we finish, you mentioned your team. And I think this is absolutely vital. You had a team of people that had different roles in putting on the event, and obviously you are in charge of it all. I was in charge of the main track 1, and all that side of things. But you had designers, you had people on the Facebook Messenger bot. How important are all those different roles? If somebody's putting on an event, I assume you would advise them not to put on an event like yours, and if it's only them. But what are the different roles, and why do you think they're so important?
Yes, the first thing I would say actually is, if you haven't done a virtual event before, and this is the same with anything like online courses or memberships or whatever, like there's no need to go to the big one. Why not just try a smaller thing, like do a masterclass first, or do an afternoon or a morning or something. Like I really wouldn't advise. I've got a lot of experience running in-person events for lots of people, and that's probably why I was able to transfer that. I think if I didn't have that experience, it would have been so daunting, because I know how it works in person. There were lots of things that came up which are unique to online, but because I'd had that experience in person, I was able to adapt quite quickly. But yeah, I think it's really important that everybody knows what their job is. So you were in charge of track 1, Sam was in charge of track 2, but we also had Ant, who was the host, and then track 3, Julie in my team, she was in charge of that track. Lisa was in charge of that. Her job was just to make sure speakers were in the right place, and if they weren't in the right place, then it was her job to call them. We had Facebook messenger groups going on, didn't we, where people were for all of the speakers for the different days, and it was like clockwork. I could see it going on as I was doing my bit, but I could see, like, where's so-and-so? Okay, yep, I know I've tracked him down now. But I think the important thing is that everybody knows what their job is. But also there's so many moving parts to an event. And so we're working on a Christmas market, aren't we, for next week? And I've run Christmas market before, but maybe not on this level. And there's always things that you think, oh, my God, I need that as well. I need that as well. So there's so many, like you said before, people get so confused. People are busy, and so you send them an email and you give them all the links, and then they still don't know where they're supposed to be or whatever. And so, or they get reminded on the messenger bot, but they're still confused. So it's anticipating all of the things that will go wrong and making sure that everybody knows whose job it is to deal with that particular thing. So we did have quite a lot of meetings where we sort of sat down, and a lot of shared documents. We had a rehearsal. The Zoom room thing, moving people in and out of Zoom rooms. We not only rehearsed with the speakers, we had a rehearsal day for the speakers, we had a rehearsal day for the keynotes. We also had a rehearsal for us as a team. Like I think you and we run, yeah. You run that with us, Ian, but we had a rehearsal as a team where we practiced, because some of them were quite nervous, and we also had a backup. So like if Sam's internet went down, then Julie had to take over Zoom, and if Julie's internet went down, then Lisa had to take over Zoom. And so it was literally like that, Yeah. I think there was hardly anything we hadn't thought of. The Zoom rooms, that was quite hard actually to find a backup for that, because there isn't much that offers the same. So at the end we had a Facebook group set up and a StreamYard broadcast ready to go, and the email written. It's just about everybody knowing what their job is, I think, and just having everything written up. So we've actually put together a product which is a virtual. This is something else, a virtual virtual event in a box, because there's so much copy, there's so many things that have to be created. You just have to think of everything, and it's probably starting by thinking of all the things that could go wrong, I think. I'm not the naturally most organised person in the world, but I did sit down like with an Asana list and just map it all out step by step. And then as you're doing that, you think, oh, well, what about that? And what about that? And so, yeah, I think we pretty much, there wasn't much that we didn't think of, was there? But a lot of it was just about people knowing their roles and having a backup plan of a backup plan and a backup plan. It's communication, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And of course, there's designs as well. There's a whole getting the thumbnails and all the graphics and all that side of things as well. It's important. And backup plans for internet, one of the things that I invested in, obviously, if my internet went down, that would be game over, So I actually invested in a 4G router, if you're in America, 4G router. And just in case my internet went down, it's obviously good to have a backup. So all these things need to be thought about, and we definitely did think about that. So how can people find out about this? What did you call it, in a box? The virtual event in a box.
Yeah, it's a virtual market in a box, but it's an event version, an event in a box. So if you head over to my website, janetmurray.co.uk, and I'm trying to think, do you know what I should have? I'll give it to you to put in the show notes. Isn't that bad? I should have it with me to give you the link, but we've got a wait list going at the moment. But yeah, we've put together all of the onboarding emails and offboarding emails and briefing for speakers and briefing for delegates and whatever. So yeah, I'll give you the link, Ian, to put in your show notes.
No, that's
exactly.
great.
I don't want to give you the wrong one. But...
No, we don't want that. It does get confusing when you have all these different short links, and I know what I need to do actually is probably have a poster just to the left of my camera with all the short links there. That would probably be a good thing to do. That's another thing to put on the list. I think another thing actually is previous shows as well, because I always think, we talked about that a few weeks ago, but I can't remember where. So,
I know, it's great when you're doing a solo show. You can just stop, can't you? I can just stop and record. Well, yours are all live, aren't they? You can just stop and record. Yeah. Have a little Google, or sometimes my editor will have to wait while I have a little Google to find the episode. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's just about communication and processes and systems, which is not my bag really, but I had to learn to love them a little bit.
Well, thank you so much, Janet. It's been great to have you on yet again. This is I think number 3 or number 4 that you've been on the show, but it's been great to have you on and to talk about all of that. So you've mentioned your website, janetmurray.co.uk. That's probably the best place to find out more about you. But of course, you're very active on all the socials. I know that Instagram is one of your favorite ones. And is it, remind me what your Instagram username is?
It's Jan Murray UK.
Jan or Janet?
Jan Murray UK.
Yeah, Jan Murray UK. Yeah, so definitely do check out Janet. And thank you so much for coming on the show. So yeah, just to let you know, this show goes live on Facebook, YouTube, and all the different networks out there every Tuesday and Thursday. And if you want to get notified, if you want to be involved on the live show, if you want to get on and ask some questions, get involved, then just go to confident.live/subscribe and my handy Facebook Messenger bot will kick in there. And also don't forget the podcast, which is at iag.me/podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, then just go there. And I would love it if you could leave a review if you enjoy that. So awesome. Well, we'll leave it there. Until next time, I encourage you to level up your impact and authority and profits through the power of Confident Live Video. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Confident Live Marketing Podcast with Ian Anderson Gray. Be sure to join the community at iag.me, where you can continue to level up your impact, authority, and profits through the power of live video. And until next time, toodaloo.